Hello guys, so today my name is Shiefanny with two of my friends Daniel and Yeremia will present about the chapter 11 about money, interest and income. So here it is.
Hello guys, so in this video we're going to learn about money, interest and income. My name is Daniel and these are my friends that are going to be presenting today, Shiefanny and Yeremia. Let's get started. So introduction to this chapter. This chapter introduces money and monetary policy and builds an explicit framework of analysis within to study the interaction of goods markets and assets markets. Now, this framework leads to an understanding of the determination of interest rates and of their role in the business cycle and introduces an avenue by which monetary policy affects output. So, in this chapter, the highlight is the interest rate as an additional determinant of aggregate demand and a new model which is ISLM model that is also known as short-run macroeconomic score. Why understanding money market and interest rates is important? First one, because monetary policy works through the money market to affect output and employment. The second reason, the analysis qualifies the conclusion of chapter 10. ISLM model includes assets markets and introduced new monetary policy to provide fuller analysis of the effect of fiscal policy. And the last reason is interest rates changes have an important side effect. So interest rates become the determinant of aggregate demand. Higher interest rates dampen aggregate demand. Thus, an expansionary fiscal policy tends to raise consumption but tends to reduce investment. Because the rate of investment affects the growth of the economy, the side effect of fiscal policy expansion is a sensitive and important issue in policy making. So there is a relation between interest rates and fiscal policy and also with policy making. So let's continue. We have the ISLM model structure. So let's dig deeper to this part. Now, as you can see on the left hand side, there's the chart there, and the meaning for ISLM itself, IS stands for investment and saving, and LM stands for liquidity preference and money supply. And the structure, now it contains ES curve and LM curve. ES curve shows the combination of interest rates and level of income. Actually, two of this curve is it's kind of the same. They show the combinations of interest and income, but the difference is the ES curve shows the combination at which the goods market clear, and the LM curve is the combination of interest rates and income at which the money market clears. So that is the difference. The goods market and the ES curve. The ES curve or schedule shows the combinations of interest rates and levels of output, which is income, such that planned spending equals income. Okay, so ES curve can be obtained from two steps. First, we explain why investments depends on interest rates. Now, the second, we insert the investment demand function in the aggregate demand identity and find the combinations of income and interest rates that keep the goods market in equilibrium. Okay. Now, this is the investment and interest rate. This is the function. As you can see, I is the interest, is the investment, and the I bar is the autonomous investment spending, and the B is the responsiveness of investment spending to the interest rate, and the I is the interest rate. Now there's what do you call it? the condition B is larger than 0. Next one, investment and the interest rate. As you can see, there's the curve which represents the interest rate and the investment. So it's a negative slope actually. So this equation states that the lower interest rate, the higher is planned investment. The scheduled graph, which is a negative slope, shows the assumption that a reduction in the interest rate increases the profitability of additions to the capital stock and therefore leads to a larger rate of planned investment spending. So the investment schedule precision is determined by the slope, which is B, and by the autonomous spending on is investment spending, which is the I bar. Just as you can see, there's the curve. The bottom part is the planned investment spending, and the left one is the interest rate, and it shows a negative slope. Interest rate and aggregate demand, the S curve. So we're not going to dig in too much on the equation, but it is the aggregate demand is still the same with the previous chapters, but the investment spending depends on the interest rate in this chapter. So yeah, as you can see, that is the equation. Okay, let's move on. The interest rate and aggregate demand. We're still in the same context here. As you can see, that is the curve. I don't know if you can see the equations there, but yeah, so from the equation we can see that an increase in interest rate reduces investment spending. The equilibrium level of income obtained is Y1 at point E1, and that is the equilibrium level of the income. And as the interest rate changes, the equilibrium changes also. As you can see, the E1 changes into the E2. So this figure, the aggregate demand schedule shifts upward because the intercept A bar minus BI has increased, and the equilibrium shifts into E2, as you can see over there. It shifts from the blue line to the black line. Okay. The interest rate and aggregate demand, the S curve, still the same context. As you can see, there is the curve. We have the same kind of curve, but this time it is a negative slope. So the increase of aggregate demand with the reduction in the interest rate, as you can see there, because of the reduction of interest rate, it became negatively sloped, and that is the goods market equilibrium condition. It's still a little bit the same, but it's different because of the interest rate being the determinant. So from the equation above, a higher interest rate implies a lower level of equilibrium income. So next we're going to talk about the slope of the curve, which is going to be explained by my friend Shiefanny. Thank you.
So now I will explain about the slope of the curve. So the steepness of the curve depends on the multiplier. You can also see this in the equation 5 before. And the steepness of IS curve depends on these two things. First, the interest elasticity of investment, and also the MPS. The MPS is you can find on the saving curve. This statement is from the another resources. And for the IS curve, it can be very flat or very steep. For the flat one, it will be happen if the B coefficient B, which is used to measure responsiveness of investment spending to the interest rate, is very large, and also the investment sensitivity to interest rate. And for the other one, the IS curve will be steep if the coefficient B is small and the investment is not sensitive to the interest rate. Here is the role of multiplier. You can see here that the coefficient C and the coefficient C absent. For the coefficient C, this is the line, this is the solid black one, and the C absent is the dash one. And the C absent or the dash one is higher than the solid one. This is also same with the blue line one. And for the second figure here, you can see that this is the y1 and y absent 1, and here is they at the same interest rate. Here is the point, and if we make a line, the IS will be here, and from the y absent it will be here for the IS absent. These two graphic or figure concludes that the larger multiplier and the larger the time in income produced by a given change in the interest rate, and the smaller the sensitivity of investment spending to the interest rate, and the smaller multiplier, and the IS curve will be steeper. And here is the equation for finding the interest rate. I is equal to the aggregate demand divided by the coefficient B minus the income or output divided by the multiplier times the coefficient B. And the position of the IS curve. Here is the figure, and you can see here that this is the first income, this is the aggregate demand, and the equilibrium will be here. But if the income increased to here and the aggregate demand also increase, the equilibrium will be also higher in this point. And if we make a line, here is like that. And here is the second figure. You can also see almost the same. This is the first income and the second income. And in this figure, you can see that the interest rate is same like here. So the first equilibrium will be like here, and this is the second one. And if we make a line, the IS will be like here, and the second income, the IS will be here. These two figures conclude that the increase in the level of autonomous spending caused the IS curve to be at IS absent curve rather than the IS. And an increase in autonomous spending, government purchases shift the IS curve out to the right and depends on the multiplier. You can see here it is shift to the right if this is same like that. And how far it will shift is depends on its multiplier. This also state how we will calculate the autonomous spending is by this equation. And the next subchapter is we will talk about the money market and the LM curve. First, what is LM curve? L stands for the liquidity and M stands for the money supply. This curve will shows combination of interest rate and the level of output such that money demand equals money supply. And this curve is derived into two steps. First, why money demand depends on interest rates and income, emphasizing that because people care about the purchasing power of money. And the second is the equate money demand with money supply set by the central bank, and find combination of income and interest rates that keeps the money market in equilibrium. And the demand for money. The demand for money is a demand for a real money balance because people hold money for what it will buy. The example here, let's say that the price level is higher, then the more nominal balance a person has to hold also to be able to purchase a given quantity of goods. And if the price level doubles, so individual or people also should hold twice as high as a nominal balance in order to be able to buy the same amount of goods, like that. And the demand for real balance depends on the three things. First, real income, interest rate, and also the cost of holding money. The cost of holding money is like the interest that is foregone by holding money rather than other assets. And here is the equation to express the real balance, or denote as L. This is the figure. Okay, and if you see the figure here, there is a K and H. K, both of them is reflects the sensitivity of the demand for real balance to the level, income, and the interest rate. For the K, it will reflect the income, and for the H, it will reflect the interest rates, like that. And this also concludes that the higher level of income, the larger the demand for real balance, and therefore the farther to the right the demand curve. So it will shift to the right, like that. The supply of money, market equilibrium, and the LM curve. So here is the figure. This is then for the real money supply at this level. It is vertical, and if the interest here is be here, so the equilibrium will be here, and if it increase the equilibrium, let's say here, so it will be here for the L1, and this is the second liquidity. And this is, let's say that the first income here and the interest rate here. So if we make a line, the equilibrium will be like here. And this is the second. If both increase, so the equilibrium also will be higher, like this. This is also conclude that the LM schedule, or money market equilibrium schedule, shows all combinations of interest rate and level of income such that the demand for real balance is equal to the supply. Along the LM schedule, the money market is in equilibrium. Here's the equation to find the real money supply. That's the coefficient K times the income minus H times interest rate. And so if we want to find the interest rate, we just change the equation here, and it will result like this for the formula. And last, the slope of the LM curve. If the IS before is the negative slope, so the LM now is the positive one. And the greater the responsiveness for demand for money to income, or K, and the lower the H is the responsiveness for money to interest rate, then the steeper the curve will be. And the LM curve will be nearly vertical if the demand for money relatively insensitive to interest rate, and also H is close to zero. And if the demand for money is very sensitive and the H is large, then the LM curve will be nearly horizontal. This is conclude that a small change of interest rate must be followed by large change in income to maintain money market still in equilibrium.
So, and next is going to be me. We're going to talking about the position of the LM curve. Here's the graph that we have, and the real money supply is held constant along the LM curve. Change in the real money supply will shift the LM curve. As we can see, curve above, curve here, this curve, I mean, it shows that the effect of an increase in the real money supply on the left panel show the demand for real money balance for a level of income Y. And
with the initial real money supply MP, the equilibrium is at point E. Here, this one the equilibrium and this one too. With the interest I, the corresponding point on the LM schedule is E. So the LM curve is the schedule of combination of interest rates and levels of income such that the money market is in equilibrium, reduce the quantity of money demand and thereby maintains money market equilibrium. The LM curve is taper when the demand for money responds strongly to income and weakly to interest rate. The LM curve is shifted by change in the money supply and increase in the money supply shift the LM curve to the right. Next, we're going to talk about equilibrium in the markets, in the goods and money market. Sorry. This we're going to be our graph now. So the IS, this graph, the IS and LM. IS is goods and LM is money. E still equilibrium. So the IS and LM schedules summarize the conditions that have to be satisfied in order for the goods and money markets respectively to be in equilibrium. In this table, the equilibrium interest rate is therefore I and the equilibrium level of income is Y, given the exogenous variable, in particular, the real money supply and fiscal policy. At point E, where's the equilibrium right here, both the goods market and the money are in equilibrium. Now we're going to next into this. Change in the equilibrium levels of income and the interest rate. The level of income and the interest rate change when either the IS or the LM curve shift. So in this table, we can it shows the effect of an increase in the rate of autonomous investment on the equilibrium levels of income and the interest rate. Such an increased rate autonomous spending A and therefore shift the IS curve to the right. That result in a rise in the level of income and an increase in the interest rate at point E, right here, point E. What explains the fact that the increase in income is smaller than the increase in income is smaller than the than the increase in autonomous spending? Diagrammatically, it is clear that the explanation is the slope of the LM curve. The increase is in autonomous spending does tend to increase the level of income, but an increase in income increase in demand for money. Okay, next one is going to be deriving the aggregate demand schedule. So the aggregate demand schedule maps out the ISLM equilibrium holding autonomous spending and the nominal money supply constant and allowing price to vary. Simply, a higher price level means a lower real money supply. An LM curve shift to the left and lower aggregate demand. In table right here, table shows the ISLM equilibrium. The intersection of the IS and LM curve give the level of aggregate demand corresponding to price P and is so marked in the lower panel. Panel B. Suppose instead that the price is higher, say we can say P2. The curve LM2 shows the LM curve based on the real money supply MP2. LM2 is to the left of LM since MP2 MP1. point E shows the corresponding point on the aggregate demand curve. And that's all from us. Thank you for your attention and hope you enjoying. Thank you.